Tim, each year we start with an episode about goals, like how to set goals and how to build habits and how to start your year off right. To make the new year better than the one before.
Yeah, absolutely. It's virtually a tradition in our first 5 years of doing this podcast.
Yeah, well, I'd like to take that tradition and just smash the hell out of it. How about that, Tim?
Okay.
No, here. I would like to consider that we do something different with this episode.
Oh, well, that was lovely said. Yeah, you know me. I'm open. Okay. What do you have in mind?
Okay, so we have had this tradition of starting each year with a grooving session on goals or habits, but you know what? We've been talking about something else for these past 5 years as well, and that something else is grooves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We end every episode with a sign-off to remind people to use these nuggets that we've shared to go find their groove, But
what?
But we've never actually told people what a groove is.
Oh.
Or how to find it. Or what they could do with these grooves. Or what our thinking is around grooves. We haven't ever told anybody.
I guess I've thought about this, like finding your groove thing was kind of obvious. It's just like I'm coming at it from the perspective of I'm a musician, and musicians have a way of finding their grooves in songs, and I guess that finding your groove in life just wouldn't be so difficult either. All right, okay, you got me interested, Kurt. What do you have in mind for this episode then?
Okay, so what I'd like to do is to talk about how our listeners can find their groove or find their way back into the groove if they've somehow lost it or fallen out of it.
Okay, I'm in. And I'm excited to do that because we have talked to lots and lots of people about this topic, and many of them in just casual passing, and some of them in really pretty formal interviews about what they think about a groove is and how they found it and how they stay in it when they get bounced out. And we've done a bunch of secondary research on the topic, like how a groove compares to being in flow. The concept that was developed by Mahai Csikszentmihalyi. And I think that we do have some cool observations to share. All right, Dr. Nelson, where would you like to get started?
Yeah, well, I'm going to guess that maybe, just maybe, Mr. Houlihan, that you might want to start this grooving session out by somehow bringing in music.
Oh, well, that was a nice deflection. I was thinking you would get started. Now I'm going to get started. Well,
you talked about music and being in the groove in music.
Yep.
And we have had this conversation about how being in a groove in life kind of reflects that same process. So
yeah. I mean, because when we think about if we were to listen to a song, it's not a single note or a single rhythm or a single key or a single tempo, right? And life isn't made up of a single song or a single note or a single rhythm or a single tempo. It changes. It changes over time. And so that doesn't mean that you can't be in the groove for all those different things. A good musician can find a groove in any key or any tempo, basically any rhythm. And so I think that for me, it's just sort of like, well, you kind of have to figure out how to find your groove in a variety of different circumstances, right? I mean, that's kind of my thought. Okay, as a songwriter, when I sit down to write a song, you pick a key and you choose a rhythm and you decide on a tempo, but that's just one song. That's just one idea. That's just one of many, many songs in our life, right? And so our life is made up of a playlist of many, many songs with many different keys and many different rhythms and many different tempos. But that doesn't mean we're not in our groove when we're going from song to song. That can all be part of our groove. So I think that it's kind of bigger than just a moment or, again, to use the musical metaphor, being in your groove isn't just being in your groove for that song or for that experience in life. Being in your groove is actually finding a way of moving from song to song, from experience to experience in your life, and finding some, again, not to overwork the musical metaphors, but to harmonize that, to figure out a way of how to piece those things together in a way that works.
How would you describe, for somebody who hasn't listened to us, this is their very first episode, and they're listening to this and they're going, okay, so musical groove, whatever, but how does that that end up in my life? What does a groove in my life feel like? How would I know if I'm in a groove?
Well, you and I mentioned this earlier, but you and I have talked to lots of people about this, and we have actually done some secondary research on it. So I think that you and I would probably agree that there are three components. There's three primary foundational elements of what it means to be in your groove. And I think the first one is mindset. Like that kind of, it's almost like setting the key, for the song. And then, the rhythm, the rhythms in life would be the second part. And then the third would be the environment of the context. And we should probably spend some time discussing those. But I think when those three elements are present, when we've got mindset and rhythm and environment, then that's when we really find our groove. That's when we find our way back into our groove, is with the combination of those things. How does that resonate with you?
No, I mean, we've talked about those three pieces, and I think those are the elements that help us get in. I think if I was just trying to define what that means, it's hard. The definition of a groove is hard.
Yeah.
It's similar to flow, but it's not flow. But it is being in the moment. It's being aware, but it's feeling like you're moving forward. It's feeling like you have control to the degree that you want to have control. It's this idea of being able to live, as you said, harmoniously with the life that you have, that you're not getting this, as I'll use a bad musical reference, right? It's like you're not off key, right?
Yeah,
you are on key, that your life is there, and you're appreciating all of the moments of your life, that you're feeling like when you go to bed at night, you're going, yeah, this was a damn good day.
Yeah.
Or
it was just a good day, even. It was a good day. Yeah.
It was a good day. And not saying that there aren't, negative moments, but you're looking at those negative moments with a different lens to say, what can I learn from this? How am I going to overcome this? How am I not going to let my overactive brain really take me down a dark hole because we had a setback, and just move forward and take the next day as it comes. And I think that's a big piece of this. It's living life not to the fullest, but not to the fullest, I think, is how many people think about it. This idea that I have to fill every moment with some activity, and I don't want to miss out. It's not FOMO. It is living life to the fullest because you're appreciating what life is providing with you, what you're getting out of life, and that you're moving through it with a purposeful intent.
That's a beautiful way of thinking about groove. Is there's a fullness about it. It's not max. It's maximum. Maximum and fullness are not the same thing, right? Maximizing every experience is not the goal of being in the groove, but a full experience is a groove state, right? Maybe we could, I mentioned these three pillars. Maybe we could just talk about the groove mindset for a minute. Like what makes a groove mindset different from any other mindset? What are the components that make it up?
Yeah, and I think for me, as we've talked about this over the past 5 years and been really getting into some of the research, the mindset is it's the alpha. This is how we have to start if we want to live a life that is grooving, right? That is that you find your groove. You have to start with a mindset, and I think as we've talked with researchers around this, and not necessarily specifically on this topic, but just on general elements about behavioral science and life and happiness and fulfillment, gratitude comes up. And having a mindset that starts with this idea of gratitude And I think the mindset is much more than that. So this isn't just, let's
Yep.
live a life full of gratitude and do a gratitude journal and
Check.
write down our 3 things and I'm going to have this, grooving life. No, that's not what this is. But you need to start there. You need to start with this idea of abundance, that there is that the world is in general good, and that I can be grateful for not just the big things that happen in my life, but those moments in my life. And if we start having that mindset, we start looking for those. And we know from the research that when you're looking at that gratitude kind of mindset, and you do maybe write gratitude down, or you think about this, or you have these conversations and talk about, what am I grateful for today? That when you start doing that, your brain actually starts looking for those moments to identify them, rewiring the synapses within that in order to be more open to moments where we can be grateful.
Right. Which then I think leads into a couple of things that sort of go hand in hand, and that is intentionality and awareness. Right. So with this gratitude, with this sense of abundance, I think that sort of naturally leads to a sense of awareness, because we want to be aware of what's happening, but we won't get to awareness unless we're intentional about it.
Right.
We have to be willing to say, I'm getting up today. I'm walking to the train, and I'm going to be looking for people walking their dog, because every time I see somebody out walking their dog, it makes me happy, puts a smile on my face. So I'm going to keep an eye out for people walking their dog. And if I don't have that intentionality, then when the people walking their dog, when I pass them on the way to the train in the morning, commuting, I'm not going to take that in. I'm not going to go, oh, that's a little source of joy right there.
It's going to pass you by. It's the We've talked about this. It's the focusing in on eating the pancake you have at breakfast, and and not just scarfing it down, but enjoying it, being intentional about the taste, the way that it makes you feel, the smell of everything, the routine, the ritual that you might have around it. It's the getting up and looking outside. Like today, I'm here in Minnesota, Tim, since you are no longer here. We had a snowfall last night, and the snow is the heavy snow, but it's sticking to all the trees, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. And these are moments like when this comes. This is easy to look up because it's awe-inspiring. You look and oh my gosh, every
beautiful
branch is out there. But just on every normal day, what can you find? What can you see that brings you joy? As you said, finding people walking their dogs, having that first cup of coffee, or your cup of tea in your case, right?
Right.
Doing all of being aware of what's going on with this gratitude and intentionality piece. So when you start putting those pieces together around this mindset, we're starting to get there. But I don't think that's not fully it. We haven't reached a groove mindset yet, have we?
Not completely, because I think we also need to. It's not just a place of stasis. I don't think it's just complacency. There is an aspect of growth that goes along with groove. There is this side of the equation that we have to kind of think about, sort of where we're going, because we are intention-driven machines, and so it's not just about doing the same thing over and over again and living my whole life in this space of never doing anything different, of having just one massive routine. It's really about taking on new challenges and challenging yourself. And of course, Carol Dweck, wrote extensively about the growth mindset. And I think that's part and parcel to what makes a groove mindset work, is that you need to be open to this idea that I'm going to grow. I'm not going to stay the same.
And going back to the intentionality of that is saying, where are the areas in my life that I want to take that step to grow and
Yeah.
be intentional about that. I love this idea of thinking about our life as, when you bring up the musical part, right? But we have these rhythms, and we're not going to talk about rhythms so much as this, but there are these fluctuations. We've talked about the oscillations within our life, and not having that my God, if you had a song that was just a single solid note, that's grating, right? And our lives can't be like that either. Our lives need to have variation. You need to be able to expand upon what you're already doing. And it goes back to some of the stoicism things, like this an unexamined life isn't, worth living. This idea of we need to examine our life. We need to have a meta life focus. This idea of thinking about our life and how we live and how we show up. And that, I think, is part of this growth. It's not necessarily growth that I'm going to learn this new thing, but it might be growth about how I show up. It might be growth about my relationships. It might be growth about, I could be learning a new thing. And with that, and this is, again, part of what we've talked about, is we have to understand that we only have so many hours, so much energy, so many resources.
That's right.
And
that's right.
If we are growing and we're doing something new, what are we giving up? And this comes back to the intentionality, and we have to be very purposeful in understanding what it is we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve, because too often we go, I just want to learn a new language. I want to do this. I want to become, I want to get that promotion. And in order to do that, that takes time. It takes energy. It takes resources. It takes effort.
Yep.
And that it needs to come from somewhere. And if it comes at the expense of something that we don't want to give up, we don't want to have that. Then you're not in your groove.
Which loops back to intentionality, right?
Yeah.
And that consideration and that awareness. And so all these things play together in the groove mindset that help remind us where do we want to go, and where are we? Where are we right now? And it's not always about, and I don't think we'll talk about this today, but we'll end up talking about goals and habits and routines and things that are important to it. But just the groove mindset allows us to be in a place that says, where I'm headed is a good place, and I may never get there. There's always going to be more there ahead of me, but I can enjoy the journey. I can feel a sense of fullness and abundance and happiness in getting there, not just being there.
And I think another aspect of this mindset that we've talked about is that it's this assumption of positive intent with others, because our lives are lived socially. We are social creatures, and we don't go off and live by ourselves. But oftentimes, if we are in these relationships, whether they be intimate, deep, lifelong, spousal, family, good friends, or even casual relationships, the people that we kind of work with on a regular basis, or that are serving us, the cashier and various different pieces, or even people we pass on the street, is assuming positive intent, benevolence, this idea that they're not out to get us, and we don't have to live our life in that
that's right,
scanning the world for threats. Not to be naive, not to say, there aren't threats out there, that there aren't people out there, but in general, it is the groove mindset is one that is looking for positive elements. It's the gratitude. It's looking to cooperate. It's looking to build upon these aspects. So goes back to Hanlon's razor, right?
The never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity.
So, I mean, if somebody does something and is like, oh my God, they're out to... No, they're probably just being stupid, and give them a break, right? That's that.
And give yourself a break when you do something stupid,
Yes, yes. Well, as I have come to really appreciate this idea of the pratfall effect, because I will bring it up all the time, this idea that, oh crap, I messed it up. Well, that means people will like me better because I'm not perfect and I have messed up. You know that with this show, how many times I messed up and we still just run with it. But,
well,
hey.
my running tab on your mess ups is still only half of mine. So, we got a long way to go.
I don't know. I think that might be some bias there. I think you're forgiving, but thank you for that.
Okay, so the groove mindset, just to kind of wrap up, folks, is this mix of things, and we put intentionality and gratitude and a sense of abundance so at the top, and then kind of from that we get into benevolence and a sense of growth and to be aware. I mean, awareness is a really key part of it. So these are sort of the central pillars of what we think are important in a groove mindset, and the groove mindset is just one of really 3 foundational things that we'll talk about here to get us into what a groove totally is.
Yeah. So Tim, I think we've covered a lot of ground, and as people, if you're listening to this, we've talked about writing about this, right? Writing a book about this, but it's one of these topics that is broad and it's messy, and we're kind of getting our fingers around it and identifying it, and so. But this is really, I think, key as we move forward, and I feel like there's a lot more to share. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And kind of getting back to that writing, we should put some things down on paper to share with our listeners. I think that might actually be helpful.
I like that idea. We have some intentionality about what we're trying to do here, Tim. So
yes, we do.
Okay, we could go on and on and on, as you know that we are passionate about this. And so listeners, hopefully you got a better glimpse. Maybe you're more confused now than you were before. But hopefully it helps you understand, like, when we sign off at the end of this, what we're talking about. And hopefully what we've shared will help you, our listeners, go out and find your groove.